The title of today's lecture is The Dawn of the Modern Era. What does the word Renaissance mean? Who can tell me that? Rebirth. There you go. You got a piece of pizza if you want it, bro. Good job. Yeah, Renaissance means rebirth, and that's exactly what the Renaissance was. It was a rebirth of the arts. It was a rebirth of intellectualism and thinking about education and looking at the world in a new way. And I have here this picture, the Mona Lisa. Here's another question. Who can tell me who painted this picture back here? Yes.
Vincent Van Gogh.
That's not. No. That's not right. Right here, man. Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci painted this. It's the Mona Lisa. Yeah, piece of pizza. This is a very famous painting, the Mona Lisa. This is in the Louvre in France. And
Someone just snored.
as our brother said, Leonardo da Vinci is the artist who painted this. And I say on the slide that this is kind of a symbol of the Renaissance, because you can look at this painting and you can see how there's perspective there. You can see how there's depth. You can see how the shadowing on the face, and it looks like a real person. You know what I mean? And up until this point, a lot of the art had been really flat, two-dimensional, it didn't really look lifelike. And so the reason this is kind of a symbol of the Renaissance is because people during the Renaissance began to be interested in the world as it is. They wanted to see the world the way that it really is, and not in some idealistic way or some real high religious kind of way, but they're interested in things as they really are. And you can see the land. I don't know if you can see it, but the landscape. There's kind of a background that kind of looks realistic, and for that reason, paintings like the Mona Lisa are so famous, because it was the first time that painting, like lifelike actual paintings, began to be made. And so the Renaissance begins in northern Italy, and one of the main reasons for that is there's a wealthy, powerful merchant class that had emerged in Italy, and many of these people began to be interested in the arts. And you had what was called patrons, who were people of prominence, usually wealthy merchants, who would pay an artist like Leonardo da Vinci or others to do art, to make paintings, to decorate things they put in their homes. And so you had this flourishing of the arts that began. That before this, art there wasn't a lot of art. It wasn't very good quality, and so this began to change all that. And another big facet, or I guess facet of the Renaissance is humanism. Here's a question for pizza. Who can tell me what is humanism? Who can give me like a characteristic or a definition? Or anybody know what humanism is? Eating humans? Cannibalism, yeah. Okay. Well, all right. We'll see. We'll do some more questions. Basically, I'll put up here some of the major tenets of humanism. The main one is that third one. People began to study the ancient Greek and Roman texts. And the first point there, secular interest. Up until this point, much of the education that went on in Europe was all basically in the church. And so people, if they were going to get educated, they would go to either a monastery or a cathedral, and they would study, theology. They'd study about God. They'd study the Bible. And that was kind of considered, the most important thing that people were studying. But now, during the Renaissance, people began to study secular things. They began to study literature, history, philosophy, ethics, things like this. And so people who weren't going to be priests began to get educated. So you had political figures beginning to go to get an education. You have the rise of kind of modern day universities during this time, where people are going to get an education in order to have a career, not in the church but in the secular world. Then also against scholasticism. Scholasticism was basically something that went on during the Middle Ages. One example of it is Thomas Aquinas, who wrote his Summa Theologica, which is basically, it's a big kind of like a catalog or like a reference book about theology, where he takes authorities, so old writers in the church and different things who are on both sides of an issue, and he puts down their thoughts and kind of argues. He gives a question and then he argues for a specific point. And one of the things that the people during the humanists and the people during the Renaissance were criticizing about scholasticism is that what they did is they tried to reconcile everything in the Bible and everything in the church with science. And so they said, this is the way things are. These two things are compatible. When these people are saying no, like the church has been saying that the earth is at the center of the universe. But that's not true, and we'll get to that as we go to the scientific revolution. People began to find out through observation, through experimenting, that some of these things that the church had held to be true were really not true. And so the scholasticism began to be critical of that.